All
Let
right.
me
All
see.
right. Yep. Hey, everyone. We just got cut off because we were so deep in our conversation. So we're just going to pick right back up and switch gears here because I want to ask Hillary about a piece. And this relates to her vision. And she says here, I felt battered at times, holding a light in myself that felt like others kept trying to blow it out. Then she goes on to say, each new height, others try to tear me down and I would fall and then build myself back up. And I wish deeply, this is what really got me, Hillary. I wish deeply, and I tried to find places where others could see and hold my vision, not without doubt and fear, but
Mhm.
with encouragement and hope. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So I think two parts, and I think this definitely will weave into why I created the Awaken Women Conference, because I think having community that is supports and encourages us in our visions, especially if they feel like completely outrageous and massive, is so important. And I think we sometimes look to that in places that we can't get. And I think it's hard. One of the hardest things in the world, I think, is to overcome, what other people say we can't do, right? And because we absorb that. And so I think from two lenses, for me, my parents and my family, and sometimes even some of my colleagues, were the greatest challengers in that way, because I was looking to them to validate and to be those supporters for me, and they couldn't. First of all, my parents can't because they're my parents, and so their desire for me to have a certain life being my parents means that they're biased. And I think that was a kind of a powerful thing for me to realize, that my family actually can't be that for me. They can't hold that because they have a biased opinion. So um, and certain colleagues couldn't either, because I think that there was this fear of, like, you're doing something that's so big. And also, I think when I first started, my parents, I got a lot, you're too woo woo, you're too spiritual, you can't do things that way. I had colleagues that would, like, come to my original retreat place and, well, you can't have your crystals out and you're not going to be able to appeal to corporate. And so there was all this stuff of people trying to basically have me be something. And so it was hard, because I was looking for, where is there a place where somebody's telling me it's okay for me to be who I am and to create something from this. And I kind of had to seek that out. And then I just created a community for it, because I'm like, I can't be the only one who needs this. So that was a little bit of a call to my own leadership, is to create that community, because I think when we don't have it, and it's such a one of the things I get from my horses, they live as a herd, and I get a lot of different metaphor and symbolism from that, but they get so much nourishment from each other. And I think that community is such a huge, but we have to be discerning and choose the right communities. And I think sometimes we listen to the people in the communities that they can't actually hold that for ourselves. And I think that's one of the biggest things we have to overcome, whether it's our spouse or our family or friends, that just, they don't understand. And again, from their relationship to us, sometimes they can't be objective. They can't have sort of a neutral perspective, because they're thinking of how it impacts them, right? um and that, I said, like, it happened like at every single height. When I reached the success that people measure success of, hitting six figures in my business, I thought, well, surely now, you know I won't get such a hard time. But then when I bought this, like, I'm on this 80-acre retreat center, which is my dream, it started all over again. Like, well, that's too big. What makes you think you can do that? And that's so much for one person to hold. And so there was all of those doubts again, which of course triggered my own sense of insecurity and fear. So I had to lean into the people around me that were looking at me as capable, because I needed that. I think sometimes there's sort of this place of, I think we're alone sometimes as being the people that believe so much in what we're doing, that it's something we have to bolster in ourselves. And I think sometimes we can't, so having mentors or community or wherever we get that is so key, I think, to supporting us, because we need to be fed externally. And I think it's important, though, that we are looking for places that can give us that feeding that we need, and recognizing there might be people in our life that can't do that for us because they can't be neutral. So because of both feeling the not having that support, and being kind of like, when am I ever going to get validated from certain people? And you know what? I'm probably not, right? Because there's always something new and big I'm doing that scares the shit out of my parents, that, it starts all over again. So I have to just accept that that's an ongoing cycle. I think I've learned to weed people out that aren't able to sort of, I think it's hard for us to sometimes be in the magnificence of each other because it triggers so much of our own stuff. But I also think it's important for us to really discern and seek out the people that can do that aren't threatened by us rising or claiming something, but are inspired and encourage that. And so I think the concept of the awakened woman was like a twofold. Like I wanted to give women a place where they can feel empowered and inspired and encouraged in the bigness of their dreams and their vision, and to have other like-minded women that are in the same space that can also witness them in that, because I think it's such a powerful medicine and ally that we need when we feel lost internally and we're, I think, drowning so much in our own fear. It's like we can't source that out. And we need someone to remind us and say, I see you and I know you can do this. And I think just that witnessing in itself from that place is essential, really. I think we need it.
Yes,
Yeah.
and we do, absolutely. And really, that when you talk about a big vision and holding that,
Yeah.
that is so true, to have the community that can support that, and we need that.
Yes.
And so tell us more about the conference, and what makes yours different, because you and I talked about
Yes.
this. What really makes your conference different?
Yes. So again, I think we all have our versions and visions of bigness, right? Like I think and I know this is part of, I think, what you speak to so beautifully is for women who have children and they have families, and, that's part of the vision and catering around what that looks like. I think it's amazing to get some proof of that. And I think empowerment of the bignesses, our visions look differently, and that not to compare that, because I say, like, not everybody wants to have an 80-acre retreat center, or to compare to, like, what it's been for me. So like our versions of what that is, and that to me was having a retreat center. And I think more so in terms of the monetary, because the whole 6-figure thing is like doesn't really mean anything, and that's like a thing we'll kind of get into anyways. But for me, it was, I want to be able to support my purpose doing what I do, and that, my business reflects my purpose, and it also supports me financially, that I'm able to, buy this retreat center and give homes to horses in need, which is kind of a branch of my work. And I also know when we're building these things and having these experiences, I think there's a lot of conferences that speak to like how to build your funnel and how to market and how to sell. But there's not really that really holds space, I think, for the vulnerability of the journey we take internally and being witnessed in our fears, and to really talk about how do we hold space for ourselves? Because I think that gets hugely neglected. I know something we talked about was like burnout, which I've had my journey of burnout and sacrifice. And I think that fear of like, what do we have to sacrifice? And the whole hustle thing, which I'm not a really big advocate for. I don't think we give space to empower finding our natural rhythms and talking about how do we hold space for our own fears and vulnerabilities, and also seeing and hearing stories of other women that maybe inspire us and what they've gone through, so we don't feel so isolated and alone in that. So I wanted to be able to have a gathering, I think is a more accurate word than a conference, that gives both, I think, that degree of let's talk about the things that don't get talked about in terms of where we deplete ourselves and sacrifice, and where we're maybe dysfunctional around the boundaries we hold, or how do we hold space for our own process around our fears? Because I think we're our greatest challengers and our greatest allies. And so how do we have that conversation with ourselves and support ourselves through that? And then, I'll have a bit of a different angle to talk about the business thing, more from the space of purpose and medicine and intuition, but definitely getting into how do we create our offerings, conversation around money. And I wanted to choose other women, you know, you being one of them, that could come and be on the panel with me and share their stories and their journey, because I think there's something very inspirational even about your journey that, you know, I'm excited to introduce that to my community of women. I think that really speak about the authentic, you know, courageous choices they had to make and what that process was like and the fears that we still have. And I know you and I talked about for you of like, you know, for busy women or women with children that don't have time to be on social media all day, and how do we grow something without compromising that value of family or when we don't have the time. So I think real honest and vulnerable conversations that is also, I think, anchored in some really wise and sage business support from women that I think will be impactful for other women to learn from. So that I want people to walk away from this conference feeling like they've been filled up and nourished and affirmed and witnessed in their own unique essence in their journey, with a clarity of how they move forward, and also that belief that they can move forward in their own sort of unique way. And then also maybe some tools that they need to do that. Like it's not devoid of those practical pieces, but it's not the place that we lead from. And I'm sort of saying it's great for women that are just starting, like they're birthing their practice and they're kind of like unsure or overwhelmed of like where to start. And I think also for women that have maybe been in the space for a while, that are feeling maybe a little bit stagnated or depleted, or they're evolving and they're bumping up against those walls of fear or unsure of like, how do I grow from here? So I think there's a conversation of knowing what it feels like to start in the beginning, and then also how does our practice evolve over time and how do we support that? Because I think we sort of hit those same walls over and over again. So the content, I think, is really applicable and can meet people where they're at.
My
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
That is just jam-packed. I love it in a beautiful way because you created this space and this container.
Yeah.
And when is this happening, Hillary, so that
So,
everyone
yeah.
can,
Yes. Can come.
be
Yes.
aware?
Yeah. So it's happening next week, the 13th to the 15th. And what I'm saying, so everything's recorded. So even if you can't make everything live, everything's going to be recorded. And then everybody who signs up is going to get kind of a virtual, you'll get a welcome packet, you'll get the recordings, you'll get any content, you know, from the panel. So if you can't make it live, that's okay. It's not an all day thing, from the sense of I kind of make it spacious where I think there's like 3 kind of sessions a day with some breaks in between. So it's not like you have to sit in front of your computer from 9 to 5, because that's, you know, not super realistic for some people. And again, everything's recorded. And then I also have a private Facebook group. It's sort of like a pop-up group to go through content and to be supported. And I'm uploading some videos with my herd. So I'll be kind of integrating nature and the horses and some of the work that I do to support the process too, virtually as best as I can. So if people are worried like, oh, I don't know if I can make the days or I have other things going on, they can still get access and benefit from the conference, even if they can't be there for the whole time live.
Right. So everyone, you'll get links to all of that. And so I'm looking at this because I want to give you space, Hillary, for a wrap up. You know,
Yeah.
what are your last comments and thoughts? I'm just trying to see if I wanted to hit here anything that you
Yeah,
said.
sure.
And you really hit it all. I mean, your last sentence here, what illuminates our fears and points towards our truth, that's really what we've been talking about here.
Yeah.
And so what are your final maybe wrap up thoughts for everyone?
Yeah, well, you know, I think again, where we get stuck and I think hooked a lot of the time is our own process. And so I think being supported and knowing how do we navigate that. And I think to have a space where we're talking about those things in a very transparent way is really valuable and really powerful. And I think both of us know this. We will be the biggest ones that get in our own way. And I think ultimately, like for people that are like, I really believe in what you're doing in the world, and at whatever scope or vision that is. And I think that now is the time for us to really claim our leadership in the things that we feel inspired to create in the world or evolve. And if we look even at the chaos of our world, in a lot of different ways, I think there's, I always sort of say it's the ones that need to be in leadership are usually those of us that don't want to claim it. And we need us to claim it. And so my hope is, through this space is we can help more women claim their leadership and the, whether you want to call it the light or the wisdom that they bring in the world, because I think our world is sort of crying out for more. I think women in particular, we have, I think, a beautiful space that we hold. And those of us that feel a bit scared or intimidated of claiming that maybe this can encourage us claiming it in a way that we can step into for the benefit, I think, of our own fulfillment, but also where I think there's a void that is being asked for us to fill. So that's sort of my ultimate hope for that. And I think it's a great also way of getting exposed to other women in their journeys. Like I said, I'm excited for the women in my community to meet you. And I think I've put together some pretty awesome women that we all get to learn from each other. And I think have things that will be lasting beyond just the conference of things that you can take in just for yourself as a human, right? To support you and also to support the things that you're creating in the world. So that would be my closing piece for that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for that incredible closing piece. And now is the time. That's what I really want everyone to get out of this. So even in my community, the women in my community, the men in my community, pass it on to women
Yeah.
that so that they can participate and join us as, we kind of bring our beautiful medicine into the world at this time. So Hillary, thank you so much
Thank you.
for joining. And I will say bye-bye for now, everyone. There will be a link for you to learn more information.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.